Yes, the league keeps choosing Scott Foster for its biggest moments even as players publicly call him the worst referee in the NBA. The common belief is simple. Complaints about officiating are just sore loser noise. And because the NBA grades its refs across the season, if Foster keeps getting finals assignments, he must be elite. But the reality is messier. Official reports, game stats, and broadcast receipts show how a handful of Foster-led sequences can tilt possessions and momentum, while the league's own policies insulate top-graded officials from player sentiment. Tonight, we're going to answer 3 questions. What are the concrete receipts that show Foster's whistle can swing outcomes? Why does the NBA keep assigning him to its marquee games despite the blowback? And how could the league change the incentives without turning every ending into a 10-minute replay review? Here's your first receipt in under 10 seconds. A widely discussed player poll labeled Scott Foster the league's worst referee by a wide margin, with multiple stars saying he takes things personally. That's not a rumor, that's a snapshot of the locker room. And yet, within a year, he was again among the small group of officials selected for the NBA Finals, assignments the league reserves for its top-graded, most trusted refs. So the players say he's the worst, the league says, finals worthy. Both can be true in a system that values technical execution and crew management over popularity or vibes. Let's start with the tension most fans feel, but rarely map, the extender narrative. The meme says that when a team is trailing in a series, Foster-officiated games mysteriously tend to extend that series. Social feeds spike with charts and cherry-picked records every time a Game 4 or Game 6 swings toward the team that needs the win. Inside the arena, though, coaches and players will tell you the narrative is overblown and often stupid, because every postseason game is a coin flip with elite teams and razor-thin margins. The power of the meme isn't in the truth, it's in the timing. It emerges after endings that feel off, and it attaches to the official who already has a reputation. If you want a human face for the reputation, it's Chris Paul. The history between Paul and Foster has been documented for years, from terse exchanges to technicals to the infamous night Paul got tossed after 2 quick techs. For a long stretch, fans tracked Paul's playoff record in Foster-officiated games like it was a stock ticker, turning a small sample into a defining storyline. Whether that's causation or coincidence almost doesn't matter for trust. When a respected veteran's worst moments keep happening under one ref's whistle, perception becomes its own reality. The league's counterweight to perception is process. Every call is graded by neutral observers. Points of emphasis are drilled into crews. Assignments flow from season-long accuracy and leadership scores. The NBA posts referee assignments daily, publishes post-game pool reports, and releases last 2-minute audits for close games. To the league office, transparency lives in those documents. To fans, though, transparency lives in the broadcast clip they watch 10 times on social media, slowed down to half speed with a zoom-in of a wrist slap or a hip check. That's where the last 2-minute report, or L2M, sits in the middle, half sunlight, half lightning rod. The L2M reviews calls and notable non-calls in the final 2 minutes of games within a certain score window and says whether each decision was correct or incorrect. It's supposed to be the audit that rebuilds trust, but the tool has limits. First, it only covers the final 2 minutes. The 3 o'clock to 2:01 possessions that push a team into the bonus or flip a matchup rarely make the public ledger. Second, the L2M uses the league's teaching angles and rule points of emphasis, not the broadcast angle that fans saw in real time. You can see the result in high-profile examples. In one wild finish, the L2M acknowledged multiple missed calls that tilted possession dynamics around a star's late-game burst. In another, it listed a single mistake unrelated to the sequence lighting up social media. On paper, both nights had transparency, but only one night felt like vindication for the losing side. The other felt like the league shrugged at what viewers believed their eyes showed. When the audit affirms frustration one night and swats it away the next, the public starts to treat the L2M like a PR document instead of an accountability tool. Now fold Scott Foster into that environment. He's been repeatedly assigned to conference finals and finals crews, which tells you he grades out at or near the top internally. He's also the guy many players named when asked about the worst ref. Those two truths collide in every hot-button ending he works. If the L2M backs his crew, critics say the audit is narrow. If the L2M admits mistakes, supporters say it proves accountability and that errors are part of a hard job. Either way, the league's system keeps elevating him and the discourse keeps circling. To understand why, you have to look at incentives inside the NBA's officiating program. The league's head of referee development routinely releases short videos walking through verticality, freedom of movement, closeouts, and flopping. These are doctrine-setting clips. They tell officials exactly how to see contact, what constitutes marginal versus illegal, and how to define continuation. When an official adheres to those points of emphasis under pressure, that's a plus on the internal grade. When a ref leads a crew, manages coaches, communicates clearly, and keeps the game under control, that's also a plus, regardless of whether a player thinks the ref has a quick whistle. That's the heart of the overrule without a memo. Nobody writes, "Protect Scott Foster." What happens instead is technocracy. The grading matrix encourages officials to hit the letter of the law, stick to the year's emphasis points, and show command in chaotic moments. If you do that consistently, you earn the gold star premium assignments. Players can be furious, fans can post slow-mo edits, talk shows can pile on. The scoreboard inside the referee operations database still says a minus. The next question is whether the receipts ever tie Foster to deeper integrity issues. Every playoffs, old phone record stories resurface, aiming to draw a line between past scandals and present assignments. But the necessary conclusion isn't there. The relevant fact pattern ends with no evidence of Foster's involvement and no discipline from the league. It's fair to keep historic context in the file, and it's fair to say the association harms public trust. It's not fair to use that context as a shortcut to guilt. So if the league's process is defensible, why does the public's trust keep eroding? One reason is that the L2M, by design, focuses on the smallest window of the game. A bailout foul at 2:03 that flips a bonus, a missed illegal screen at 2:40 that springs a corner 3, a continuation call at 2:15 that turns a side out into free throws. None of those plays are automatically audited. Another reason is angle mismatch. The league might use a high-slash camera that shows legal chest contact, while fans obsess over a baseline replay that looks like arm contact. Both can be technically honest and emotionally incompatible. There's also the confluence of gambling, social media, and star politics. In a betting era NBA, every whistle is money. In a clip-driven media economy, the most shareable moment defines the narrative. And in a star-driven league, when a marquee player suggests a referee is personal, that quote outruns any PDF correction the next morning. Foster's persona, the stern face, the quick technicals, the history with certain players, becomes a symbol for grievances that aren't always about him. What would actually move the needle? First, upgrade transparency from endgame spotlights to fuller context dashboards. The NBA already grades every call. It could publish anonymized accuracy rates by category: block/charge, verticality, illegal screens, continuation, over rolling windows. No need to name and shame every miss. Show the public that crews, as a unit, trend up or down in specific areas. If a given crew struggles with continuation consistency, say so in aggregate. If a point of emphasis is working, show the improvement curve. Second, align L2M text with L2M video. Attach short clips to each incorrect call and incorrect non-call, with a brief rules interpretation voiceover that mirrors what Monty McCutchen already does in educational content. Fans don't just want rulings, they want to see what the league saw. Give them the same angle, the same freeze frame, and the same explanation. Even when they disagree, they'll be disagreeing with a concrete visual standard, not an abstract sentence in a PDF. Third, consider a narrow, time-boxed tweak to coaches' challenges in the final 2 minutes. One additional challenge if you still have a timeout, with limited review categories: continuation, verticality at the rim, and possession out of bounds. The point isn't to litigate every bump, it's to create a live remedy for the exact types of calls that most often ignite conspiracy theories after the fact. If the league believes its points of emphasis are strong, it should welcome the chance to show them on replay in the biggest moments. There's a fourth reform hiding in plain sight: proactive conflict management. Without formalizing avoid star X, the league could quietly rotate officials away from chronic friction pairings in the regular season to cool temperatures, then widen the playoff pool by accelerating development for rising officials who grade well. You can't drop an A-graded crew chief from the postseason, but you can raise the number of A and B+ options, so the same lightning rods aren't on every marquee game. Now, separate fact from feeling on Scott Foster himself. Facts. He keeps landing conference finals and finals crews, and that only happens if his internal accuracy and leadership grades are high. Facts: a meaningful share of players say they distrust him, and high-profile run-ins with stars like Chris Paul keep that distrust in the headlines. Facts: recent L2M reports across multiple series have admitted critical late-game mistakes that feed a broader skepticism about officiating, whether or not Foster was on those specific crews. And facts: league leadership insists that public auditing and internal grading are robust tools that drive improvement. Feelings are different. Fans and players experience contact, momentum, and whistle context in human time. Who initiated, who earned the benefit, who deserved the chance to decide the game with skill and not with free throws. The league experiences those same moments as compliance checks. Was the defender legal at the moment of contact? Was the offensive player airborne? Did the gather precede the foul? Did the vertical cylinder get breached? When those two languages collide under a referee with Foster's reputation, every borderline call feels like a referendum on integrity, not just on the rulebook. When you add it all up, the NBA hasn't protected Foster with a secret memo. It has protected him by the structure of its system, grading that rewards adherence to points of emphasis and leadership under pressure, and by continuing to award him premium assignments that communicate trust without a single press release. The player verdict says he's the worst, the league verdict says he's elite. Those are both receipts, they just come from different courts. Until the league broadens the transparency window, aligns the audit with broadcast reality, and installs a small live remedy in the final 2 minutes, the public will keep seeing patterns where the league sees process. None of this dismisses the reality that officiating is brutally hard. 10 bodies move at elite speed, angles lie, contact stacks on contact, and the human eye can only track so much. An official who grades well across thousands of decisions will still have a reel of 3 or 4 decisions that feel unforgivable to a losing locker room. The league's job isn't to make officiating perfect, it's to make trust plausible. That's why the reforms matter more than the memes. And that brings us back to Scott Foster. He's not the beginning or the end of the conversation. He's the focal point because the incentives put him at center stage. If the NBA extends transparency beyond the final 2 minutes, publishes anonymized crew-level accuracy dashboards, pairs L2M text with the actual teaching clips, and experiments with a tightly limited late-game challenge, the story shifts from personalities to mechanics. Fans will still be mad, players will still vent, but the receipts will live on screen, not just in PDFs. Here's the bottom line. The league keeps backing Scott Foster because its internal grading keeps saying he's one of the best at executing the rules as taught. Players keep blasting him because, in the moments that matter most, their lived experience of the whistle doesn't match what the rulebook and its yearly emphasis points demand. Both sides can be right inside their own logic. The fix isn't to pick a side, it's to narrow the gap between process and perception. We walked through the receipts, a player poll that crowned Foster the locker room's least trusted ref, repeated finals-level assignments that signal he's still top tier internally, L2M reports that sometimes admit crucial misses and sometimes validate crews against the broadcast narrative, a long history of star ref friction that shapes how fans interpret every borderline whistle, and a league leadership stance that says transparency and grading are working. The unique angle is simple. As long as assignments are the only public grade that matters, Foster is a feature, not a bug. If you care about outcomes and integrity, this is where the energy should go next. Demand fuller context transparency, insist on clip-linked audits, argue for a disciplined late-game challenge, and ask the league to develop more top-tier options so the same faces aren't in every storm. That's how you lower the temperature without sacrificing the standard. And if you want the deeper politics, how crew chiefs actually get picked, who in Team Ops calls the league about a crew, and why certain stars get more pathway whistles by the book, our Locker Room Confidential series is the next stop.